I need to get some ground on this because I'm not the only one this is affecting. So there are other farmers in the comments saying that they're in the same boat that I'm in because they signed these contracts, and the contracts, even like, so whenever I looked into the contract, I made sure that that funding was set aside. It wasn't funding that, oh, we hope it's there whenever it's done. I made sure that that funding was set aside so that way before I made these business decisions, I knew that funding was there per contract. So they're backing out on the contract because they don't have the funding. They can't release the funds. So please tag the representatives, please tag the senators. I need to get some ground on this. We need to help me and other farmers out. We've got to get this funding paid out. I don't care if they don't do it in the future. The problem is there was contracts in place. Multiple farms made business decisions, and multiple farms are going to sink if we don't get traction on this and get those funds unfrozen.
Donald Trump has already wrecked the U.S. economy. What's happening right now across the country is that foreign workers, who of course are not documented, they're terrified of being deported, they have decided to not show up to work, which according to farmers across the country is resulting in a massive issue because there's nobody to do the work. In California specifically, it is the peak of citrus harvesting season, and unfortunately, a lot of the workers that they hire, again, undocumented workers, are simply not showing up. So there's nobody to pick the citrus, and it's just sitting out there in the fields, and they're warning now that this could very quickly lead to a massive shortage across the country. But again, it's not just citrus farmers in California. This is the entire agricultural industry here in the United States warning us that even though we're not seeing the raids yet, the threat of the raids have been enough to cause a worker shortage. And now that the agricultural industry is sounding the alarm bells, economists are also sounding the alarm bells, as they have been for months, telling us that we are headed towards a recession. Here's how one of them put it. You are talking about a recession-level event if this is the new long-term norm. That is from Cal State Bakersfield economics professor Richard Gerhardt. Now, economists had, of course, predicted all of this. You know, I've sat here and I've talked about all of this. This is what will happen. And we're seeing it happen. It is playing out exactly the way that everybody warned you it was going to play out. Okay? There's no surprises here. There's no shock. The only thing shocking about it, as these economists are trying to tell us, is how quickly it could lead us into a recession. They had already toyed with the idea that, yes, this could probably lead to a recession. And now it's more like, yeah, it's going to lead to a recession, and it's going to happen a lot quicker than we had anticipated. Because that's what Trump's policies do. And we're only in the infancy of it, folks. We're a week into this thing. And we're already seeing the ripple effects throughout the United States economy.
Donald Trump's presidency has been an abject failure so far, and it's about to get worse, as farm workers have stopped showing up for the job due to Donald Trump's policy, specifically his immigration policy, and the way that he is handling his mass deportations and advertising it and flaunting it. It is scaring immigrant workers from showing up to the job and keeping them hiding in their homes. In Bakersfield, California, it's been reported that 75% of farm workers aren't showing up to harvest the winter crops. One farmer said that his usual harvest crew of 30 workers dropped to just 5. And food prices are about to soar because of it. We are going to get to a point where it's not going to be a case of can you find an orange? It's can you afford it if you do. Couple that with Donald Trump's tariff talk on Mexico and Canada, and it's just going to explode. Donald Trump has come into office thinking he can just do whatever he wants, and the world will just respond to his whim. And instead, he is finding out the hard way, and we're going to pay the price.
The Bureau of Land Management had to stop projects that would clear overgrown forests that fueled devastating wildfires due to the federal funding freeze. Felon Trump has been saying that clearing the forest hasn't been done, so he made sure it would never get done. It's a leadership style known as incompetence and lack of common sense. Now, President Biden's bipartisan infrastructure bill was set to fund $113 million in fire prevention work this year, which is what a competent leader would do and did. But the white, now orange House has put that funding under review. Federal worker union leaders said that they couldn't even buy the rakes. And while some projects continue under different budgets, controlled burns and brush clearing are key to preventing larger fires. And California's fire season is coming up. Again? I say buy the rakes, go into debt and send the receipt to the Republican National Committee or the maggot National Committee. Do not comply with this maggot filth. Believe in truth. I'll be back with more of it.
Hi, I was a recent federal employee that was terminated due to the restructuring and cutting of federal funds. I was a USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service employee, or NRCS. I specialized in natural resource conservation and helping producers deal with issues that involved soil, water, and air quality, as well as erosion and access to fresh water and correct forage for their livestock. We helped farmers, my agency helps farmers all over the country, and we go into their property, assess the area, and see if there are anything that we can help them with, whether it's, a no-till situation, if it's, spraying for herbicides, if it's, an erosion sinkhole that's going to cause your cow to fall in and potentially lose a calf, or, it's eating away at your field and you want to put a drain pipe in. We go in, we help the producer, we make up a contract, and then we help assist the producer, not only make sure that it's input correctly, so that way they don't have this issue anymore, but we financially assist them. We reimburse them a percentage or cost amount that they sign for, so that the burden does not fall just on the American producer. This goes for anything large scale, your soybeans, your corn, your cotton, your wheat, or your large cattle operations, your dairy and beef. In Mississippi, which is the state that I currently work in, we deal a lot with small producers, people who grow stuff at your farmer's market. We love helping farmers. That is our motto. We love helping anyone and everyone who comes through our doors. I was let go or terminated or laid off, fired, whatever you want to call it, due to performance. Now, I am a probationary employee. You're always a probationary employee for the first 12 months of service in any federal job. I have nothing but outstanding performance reviews, and this simply is not the case. I was let go due to cutting of federal funds, and like I've mentioned, this does not affect the people who are sitting around and have been in government for 20 years and aren't doing their job and are sitting around doing nothing. No, we were boots on the ground, walking the field. We were busy every day, meeting deadlines, helping farmers, dealing with, client appointments to try to get it right. And this is going to fall on the consumers of agriculture products, which is everyone in the world who wants to eat, and your producers. So if you know someone who gets federal assistance through FSA, the Farm Service Agency, they lost a lot of people just because they were new hired. This is the Animal and Plant, the APHIS Department of Agriculture. I've seen the Forestry Commission, so anyone who produces mass amounts of trees for, timber, they're affected. We help a lot with timber as well, which we were already all short-staffed, and you just cut everyone. There was one girl left in our office now. One. She can't go to these farmers' places of operation and maintain an office, so therefore, farmers will go without. Farmers will not get the assistance. They will not be able to fix these problems, which will only get worse. And it's going to fall on us as consumers and burden the agriculture community. And it's not being reported in the news just how far-reaching that this mass layoff was. Sure, everyone wants to believe that this is the bogus and the ridiculous agencies that are being cut. No, this is the USDA. These are the people who grade your food, check your food, make sure your food is, in good standing and hasn't been, shot up with antibiotics, because there are always withdrawal periods. This is everything. And it's not being reported. And it's going to fall on the agriculture producer. I loved my job. I hope they call me back to my job. My producers made my day, and I loved helping them. And you're cutting people. I don't say you, but they are cutting people for just existing with no warning. This isn't doing what everyone thought it was. They're not cutting the people not doing their job, and they're not really cutting funding, because the two people that they laid off in my office have a salary of combined less than $100,000 a year. Let's just think about that for a moment. So, if you feel inclined to support, your USDA employees, and you want to call your congressman or your senator or write them a letter saying that the USDA employees are essential to farming operations, farming communities, and keeping food safe and available for all, I would appreciate it as a previous USDA employee, as well as many of my colleagues I'm sure would appreciate it, but I do not speak for the whole agency. I'm only here to inform the people that I know about the situation and how far-reaching it actually affected them. I hope that something changes, and I hope more information comes out, and I hope to be back helping producers the best way I can. But for now, I am moving on and trying to figure out life just like every other federal employee that was released, and is trying to navigate this very weird and odd situation with no information. So, thank you.
Hello tribe, welcome again to this particular show. I go by Sherlock in case you bumped across it accidentally. Now, the frozen promises, when farmers pay the price for government inaction. The recent freeze on conservation payments is more than just a bureaucratic hiccup. It is a stark revelation of the fragility of trust between farmers and the very system that was meant to support and protect them. Skylar Holden, the example that we just listened from the beginning of this particular show, is not an isolated case but a reflection of widespread crisis where livelihood are hanging in the balance due to the stalled government, commitments. Join me. We're going to watch from different quarters, different thoughts, different grievances, and of course, at the end of it, I'll come back with more sentiments, more thoughts, insights over the same of what exactly is eating up, this particular system. And again, along the line, if you do feel like you pressed and you feel like you need to drop your comments, don't hesitate. Do drop your comment in the comment section, your thoughts, your insights of what exactly you think. Let's keep on watching. We'll meet at the end of it.
A lot of North Carolina farmers are feeling very anxious right now about the possible return of Donald Trump to the presidency. The Trump administration was utterly disastrous to North Carolina's agriculture industry, mostly because of trade policy. Trump's trade policies cost North Carolina farmers over $2 billion and still counting. That's over $37,000 in direct cost to every single farming household in North Carolina. North Carolina is one of the leading agricultural states in the entire country. North Carolina farmers export billions of dollars of poultry and hogs, corn, tobacco, wheat, soybeans, and a lot more every single year, and those exports keep our agricultural sector humming. Remember, first and foremost, farmers are business people. They need customers to buy their product. But on his very first day in office, Donald Trump withdrew the United States from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a big trade deal negotiated by the Obama administration. The TPP was negotiated for years as a strategy to confront China, and it linked 12 Pacific nations comprising 40% of the global economy into a trade network with the United States at its center. The Farm Bureau actually published analysis showing that the TPP would increase farming income in America by billions of dollars annually. But Trump blew up that deal out of pure personal jealousy for Barack Obama, and as a result, North Carolina farmers not only lost access to all those new markets, but they actually lost market share overall because all those other nations proceeded without the United States. Again, according to the Farm Bureau, North Carolina farmers have lost out on $200 million of revenue every single year since 2017. And then it got worse. Trump is famous for starting a trade war with China when he imposed new tariffs on Chinese goods, and in retaliation, the Chinese imposed new tariffs on American goods, including American agriculture. For North Carolina's tobacco and pork and soybean growers in particular, China was a massively important customer, and Trump's trade war has cost them hundreds of millions of dollars in lost business. North Carolina is one of the leading states for a loss of independent family farms and farm consolidation, and one big reason for that is deliberate trade policy like Trump's that has made their business more difficult. If he's elected, Trump has promised to do two things that really freak out the farming community. One of those is imposing new tariffs and starting a whole new trade war, and the second is massively deporting all undocumented workers who happen to make up almost half of the agricultural labor force. If you want to see $15 a pound bacon, deport the people who actually produce it. Now, it's no secret that a lot of North Carolina farmers will probably still vote for Trump because partisanship rules everything now. But there is a ton of indigestion in farming circles right now about what Trump might do if he actually returns to office and what that could mean for the future of farming in North Carolina.
Some people aren't going to like to hear this, but that farmer guy in Missouri, Skylar Holden or whatever, who lost his farm, voted for Trump, and now he is maybe not regretting his vote, but he's having conversations, he's digging into things, he's doing his research, he's finding primary sources, he's asking how to educate himself, he's engaging with comments about, other political things like racism, and expressing interest in learning. Those are the people, if you are a white person, if you have the energy to do it, and it's not going to make you jump off a bridge, those are the people that we need to be having conversations with. We do not need to be purity testing them. We don't need to have a gotcha moment. We need to find points of connection and communication, and we need to lean into that to fix problems together. I'm going to be honest, I don't care if that guy is pro-life. That is not my battle with that person or that type of person. I started learning about racism, classism, ableism, transphobia, all of the isms, after I learned about feminism through a very, third wave white feminist lens, and I connected with specific parts of that movement that exposed me to other movements of fighting oppression. We need to find the way in with these people who are experiencing this for the first time, even if it's very frustrating because we've known this whole time that this is going to happen. We need to find those points of connection, and we can work on the other things later. Again, I'm specifically asking white people to do this work, especially if you have intersecting layers of privilege. Like, I'm cisgender, I appear to be straight, and so they will take me, people like that will take me a lot more seriously than they would take, a more visibly queer person when they're having those conversations. So if you have the privilege, you need to be putting yourself, in the front, just like we do at protests, to be having these conversations, even if they're incredibly frustrating and difficult to have sometimes, because that's the only way we're going to get out of this giant fucking shit show.
This video makes me pretty vulnerable, but going home from work, watching the fields of families and friends, looking over at their pivots that aren't going, of their potatoes that are starting to come up, and their beets that are starting to come up, and seeing the pivot not going, it's pretty hard. Something needs to happen, and thinking about the fines that they're gonna have to pay, that maybe if something doesn't happen, that these guys may not have a livelihood in their future. The bills might not get paid to these farms and the mortgages, and it's hard. Somebody needs to get to the source. Something needs to happen.
I'm a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation. I previously served at the U.S. Agency for International...
PEPFAR saves lives! Restore AIDS funding now! 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 PEPFAR saves lives! Restore AIDS funding now. PEPFAR saves lives. 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 Restore AIDS funding now.
I guess these guys don't watch the news. They didn't realize that PEPFAR was one of the many programs that did prove to be life-saving, so the funding was restored. Somebody better give them a link to, I don't know, maybe Fox News or something like that. You may resume your opening statement.
I'm a senior research fellow.
We've lost millions of acres of land. We've lost our way of living, our livelihood. And the COVID relief spending bill that provided the $5 billion in debt relief, $1 billion for outreach and technical assistance, and the other $4 billion for debt relief was a 30-year-old ask from myself and others. I want to let the audience know it was white farmers who got basically all of the debt relief for the 30 years I was asking Congress and the courts to provide debt relief to black farmers. White farmers got debt relief in this country with ease, and black farmers like myself were denied the time and time again to get debt relief in this country. The banks who've been bailed out in this country were one of the very first to speak out against black farmers getting debt relief in this country. So the government has failed us, the banks have failed us, and it's almost like 40 acres and a mule. When we were promised these things. And every time there's a pot of money that's supposed to go to black farmers or black people in this country, we're told we have to wait. Last July at the White House, I was promised a meeting by President Biden. That hasn't happened. Since that time, we provided $50 billion in aid to Ukraine and other regions of the country, but we can't find a way to get the debt relief to blacks and other farmers of color in a timely manner.
I'm not going to figure out who's lying, who's not. You get on the internet and then everybody says, well, the left's lying, the right's lying. It's just a bunch of bullshit. Everybody's arguing with each other, and it's never the people against the politicians. It's the politicians against the politicians, and it's the people against the people. That's what I don't understand. We need to unite and be together, but then you're saying, oh, well, if you didn't vote for my party, we're not uniting with you. Well, that's the fucking problem. That's the problem. That we have a whole lot of things that we agree on that we could actually solve problems with if we'd all just settle down and actually have conversations.
Trump's actions are hurting Americans, American farmers, many of them who voted for him. Not only is the closure of U.S. aid affecting American farmers, but the freezing of the funds under the Inflation Reduction Act also primarily affects American farmers. Now, we know that the Inflation Reduction Act was passed under the Biden administration, and that seems to be the sole reason that Trump wants to attack it. But 78% of the $346 billion of benefits under that act goes to primarily rural congressional districts, creating 43,570 jobs in these rural communities across 31 states. So Trump has many actions he's taking that are impacting and hurting American farmers. You have the closure of U.S. aid, directly meaning that these farmers aren't going to get paid for food as they were before. Then you have this freezing of the funds under the Inflation Reduction Act, despite the fact that a lot of farmers have relied on that and put some upfront costs expecting the reciprocation of the government funding under this act, also hurting American farmers. And then you have, of course, what's happening with the mass deportation. And you have people, undocumented workers, afraid to show up to work at, yes, American farms. So you have so many different areas that are affecting American farms. And then the economy in general, the tariffs that he's putting, and perhaps even more tariffs that will impact the farmers. The tariffs that he's already putting, that Trump has already announced, that tariffs are already announced, economists are saying are going to increase inflation because we are in an area of what they call hot inflation. We already have too much inflation, essentially, to add tariffs on top of it. But Trump and Musk who seems to have the power of the president, despite the fact that he's not elected, has not been confirmed by the Senate, is making these kind of decisions that directly affect all American workers, but specifically American farmers.
Can't get enough Midas? Check out the Midas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MidasPlus.com.
Hello, tribe. Again, I told you that I will circle back, and here I am. So these particular promises, these particular frozen promises, when farmers pay the price for government inaction, and of course, from the just recent freeze on the conservation, la payments is more than just a bureaucratic hiccup. My opinion, though, it is a stark revelation of the fragility of trust between farmers and the very system that is meant to support and protect them. Now, the very many examples, including the Skylar Holden story, is not the isolated case, but a reflection of widespread crisis where livelihoods are hanging in the balance due to the stalled government, commitments. At its core, this situation underscores a deeper flaw, a reliance on institutional promises without safeguarding against system failures. And systemic failures, that is, farmers made crucial business decisions: 1, buying equipment; 2, planning land use; 3, structuring their finances based on contracts that they assumed were, and I quote, ironclad. Yet, when these particular payments were frozen, the reality became clear. Faith in government supports can sometimes be a dangerous gamble. But there is a real deal question here. Who truly failed the system? And an easy answer to that is to blame the policymakers for their inefficiency. Yet an uncomfortable truth emerges. Many in the agriculture sector placed unwavering trust in a system that has historically prioritized corporate interests over small farmers. Now, back again to the question: did the government fail the farmers, or did the farmers fail themselves by expecting stability from an inherently unstable system? But as usual, guys, that is my opinion. I also do stand corrected. Do drop me your comments on the comment section on what exactly you think of this particular video and the topic at large. Stay tuned, tribe.